Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Please share your experience with gang stalking. Do you have any personal experience of how to stop it or to slow it down? What is your theory why they are doing it to you, and who is behind this program? If you aren't targeted personally, do you know any person who might be targeted and why?
Everyone has been gang stalked. They are just extremely good at convincing you you're not being stalked. If no red flags go up, they move on to the next target.
Lying. You can easily tell if you are being followed.
I used to work as undercover loss prevention for Safeway. People don't know when they're getting followed even when they know someone may catch them.
How many people discovered being followed, say by percentage?
My first week, 2 people, after that only once or twice on an off day. Working that job, on average I caught about 6 people a day stealing.
As if you can't tell when someone is deliberately trying to blend in.
Guy. When it's your job to stalk people, you're pretty well used to acting natural whenever some people are trying to spot you. I've outright had conversations with people, and more than once had someone explain that they needed a lookout. It's usually the people trying to find someone following them who are the most oblivious. Your argument is just you trying to save face and claim you've got the eyes of a hawk. Get over yourself, and stay on topic.
Explain, senpai.
Well, when I was a loss prevention associate, they gave me my schedule 2 weeks in advance, and candid photographs of how shoppers looked so I could dress appropriately. On the job, it's a majority of working your own shopping list while watching what people were placing in their carts, say 20 bottles of baby formula, with 1 loaf of bread, and a few packages of meat. That looks suspicious, especially if that person looks nervous. At that point, they are busy looking for people who work there, people in uniform, or people looking at them curiously. How I would usually maintain visuals is by keeping my back to them constantly and holding my phone too close to my face and pretending like I'm looking at a product on the shelf, while making sure they are visible within the reflection of my phone screen. If I notice they notice me, it's as simple as taking off my jacket, tucking it away on a shelf or in my shopping cart, and putting on a hat. Since they haven't seen my face, they don't care about me, they are looking for the guy with the jacket they only saw from behind. Sort of like full body misdirection. Stalking people is easy as fuck.
Is that still your job?
No, I moved on to bigger and better things. But as far as I knew, the best loss prevention associate that worked for my company caught roughly 25 people a day. When gang stalking happens, there is usually a lot of money backing it. They could have 10 people following you on foot, bike, while 4 others simply have to drive down the street and past you every few blocks. Parking lots are their bread and butter, as well as shopping centers. They can be posted to simply watch you from the blinds of a house on the streets you frequent. Cameras can be placed in gaps to lighten suspicions, and they can track you by the broadcast from your phone and watch you from a satellite. When it comes to stalking, the best way to blend is to blend with the herd. If there's a lot of people around, you wouldn't be able to spot them, especially if there is more than one. You spot one, they are pulled back while 6 more maintain visual. In certain cases, they could be homeless people asking for money, someone asking you the time, or that girl you spotted bending over. If they can get you to look at a pretty girl, it makes it easier because you're not looking at them. Some will be with children and another adult to create the illusion of a typical family out and about. At night, they simply need to hide in the shadows and watch cameras to follow you. You could have been gang stalked the last time you went to work and not even realize you were the target of investigation.
Thanks for all the info, mate. What sort of qualifications did you need to start working in this field? Also, what would you recommend to someone who wants to learn about this?
$72 for a guard card you can receive from the Department of Public Safety. Take an 8 to 10 class on security. 1 week in field training with a partner. You also need to pass a drug test, criminal background check, and have your fingerprints submitted to the FBI. Yeah, seems like a lot of BS. For a simple job that pays $11 to 15 hour. Walmart does things differently than actual security companies, but from stories I've gathered, Walmart usually has about 9 loss prevention associates working the store at all times. I wouldn't recommend the job unless you have no problem slamming people to the ground and getting kicked, stabbed, shot at. As for the whole gang stalking in general, I haven't got many sources on it other than visually seeing it happen to other people I have noticed. Why it happens, I have no clue.
I spoke out supporting medicinal marijuana on a city-sponsored Facebook page during some riots that were happening in my town. The state police destroyed a man's house because he owned a dispensary, which under federal law was considered just a building with weed in it. They ripped his living room to shreds and scared the fuck out of his kids, pointed guns at them, and generally used shock and awe to try and scare him out of supporting the merry business. Since then, all of the dispensaries that were left open treat you like a mental patient if you try to buy weed. They constantly remind you that you need help. Some of them even try convincing you to go to church. Anyways, I linked some pages for medical proof and described some of the benefits. I was completely on this guy's side while he was being described as a public enemy. Immediately, people I had never spoken to started questioning me in person, all using underhanded conversation to try and get me to brag about it.
Well, I know person's name and think he's okay. What do you think about him?
Whenever I went to the gas station, the people at the counter would bring up Silk Road. Then the people at the supermarket started talking about Xanax and other meds that people abuse. It all felt like police tactics to try and see if I would brag about doing drugs. Since, you know, weed is just a slippery slope that forces you to take harder drugs someday. I've said it before. Gang stalking is almost always small government. It is a town trying to identify or remove someone that they don't like. I'm sure in some cases it can lead to weird occult shit, in the same way that fucked up mental hospitals would assault brain-dead patients because there's nothing else to do with them. We've all heard those stories. It's the mentality that the city is a small boat and you're wasting the resources by not appealing to the agenda that the sponsors of the town uphold. Small towns are fucked up.
I have noticed many recurring people and cars in my area. Also, helicopters fly over my residency frequently. That being said, all can easily be explained, and if you believe you are being gang-stalked, you more than likely have a form of schizophrenia.
Some of these people may just be gripped by coincidences. I heard one story of a guy sitting in a bar. Then another guy sat right down next to him and said hello. Well, they get to talking, and then out of the blue, the guy asks if he read, insert name, book. Now this was a somewhat obscure book, on a paranormal subject. The guy just says, nah, trying to play it off, but he swears the stranger looks shocked. As if it was totally unexpected, as if he knew what he had been reading and was trying to establish rapport in order to spy on him. But mind you, some of these people also claim that they are being sickened and taunted by having bleach added to their water, or ultra-low frequency devices used against them, or having cars tail them with just one headlight working. Crazy part is I was walking the last few miles home at 2 a.m. a few months ago, and Coast to Coastum I think was doing a story on gang stalking. And then coming down the street just as the cars gang stalkers used was mentioned. There was one right there. I jumped first, and then laughed. Thing is, it makes no sense. No one would spend all the time, and the money it would take to harass random citizens of literally zero importance. If an Illuminati-type organization did not like them, they would hire dudes to break into your home, shoot you, and then make it look like a robbery. It's that simple. course, there are those that claim the shadow people are actually death row inmates, brought into a stealth suit program. It renders people utterly silent, invisible, and able to pass through walls, but it's hazardous to human health and incomplete. When it malfunctions, it leaves the shadowy outline.
Same. Helicopters fly over my house every day, but it's literally news or police helicopters. There's news every day. Of course, news helicopters are gonna fly over the city at the same time every day. For them, I also think there's a little bit of confirmation bias, but like the schizo version. Like if you're consciously looking for red cars, you're suddenly gonna notice a lot of red cars, same goes for any color. But they solely focus on things like red and blue or whatever, so that's all they notice, and it's suddenly some conspiracy. And honestly, if you're literally staring at everyone as if they're an evil, gang stalker, they're gonna stare back. I would too, if a weirdo was staring at me. But they just think it's someone harassing them.
Gang stalking is not a good term. I would call it collective harassment. It's as simple as bullying at school, but that's kinda a boring example of gang stalking. Neighbors collectively trying to sabotage and harass someone, wanting them to move out or something. Such things happen regularly and have been documented. Social media groups or forums trying to collect information and try to harass someone, for the lulz, is also a form of gang stalking. It might be just people sending someone mean messages and to get some reaction, or people actually observing and stalking someone in real life. There are probably also people getting collectively stalked and harassed, for the laughs. More secretly and not in public forums, but just a group of friends collectively harassing someone because they think it's funny or someone. I haven't seen any real proof for a government program that explicitly exists to gang stalk and harass people today. But if they exist, it's probably kept a good secret and organized in such a way that it's very hard to prove.
It's definitely real. Lots of people have committed self-end because they were constantly followed and monitored, never knowing if their own government was going to fuck them up at any time. Indeed, they are harassed so much and so obviously that people then speculate that they were murdered.
This is kinda fucked up, but it happened. My buddy follows and chases people in his car for really no reason at all. So here is how I found this out. One night he and I and my GF are leaving a friend's house late at 2 a.m. and he is driving. A car passed us going really fast and he didn't like that, so he started tailing them and flashing his lights, honking and that kinda shit to scare them. So we're laughing, but my GF is in the backseat asking him what the hell he is doing. So we follow this car for like 45 minutes, totally out of our way, and you can see them turning around in the backseat getting scared. They turn into a driveway and you could just tell it wasn't where they were going, but they were just trying to lose us. So he waits on a side street nearby for like 5 minutes until he sees the car pass by and he pulls out really fast behind them. They started speeding to get away from him and driving erratically. So basically after like an hour of harassing these poor people, he just turns off his lights and slowly backs off. So he starts telling us that he drives around at night sometimes and messes with people that he thinks are driving like assholes. To think some poor guy thinks he is being gang stalked, but it's just my crazy ass buddy messing around because he is nuts.
I am a computer systems repair technician for a local retail chain. On a weekly basis, we have paranoid individuals who come in with their phones and computers, claiming they are being surveyed, stalked, etc. Needless to say, most of these people are not indeed being stalked in any definition of the word. My employees and myself find it quite humorous the number of people who think they are being watched. However, today was different. I had a couple come in. I have a very good judge of character, and these people were not joking, were not lying, and certainly had their heads squarely on their shoulders. They have been repeatedly stalked, both online and in person, for 2 years now. It started with remote messages and calls from one another's numbers to each other. It progressed to family and friends of theirs receiving SMS and calls. They ditched their smartphones, changed their service provider and numbers, and resorted to using flip phones. The issue persisted. Then, their social media accounts got hacked as well, with the perpetrators posting obscene content. They deleted their accounts for Facebook, Twitter, etc., but they perps had access to their email and contacts, creating new accounts and sending friend requests to their friends and family. This couple had to cancel all credit cards as the perps had managed to steal some financial info as well. This situation became far more personal for them when they started returning home to find items in their house moved, cigarette burns on furniture, etc. They installed a security system, but the issue persisted. When they went to check the camera footage, there was none. They contacted the security company, who said that the system and cameras had been shut off from their end. Here is what I am thinking. I believe the original perp is someone they know, a neighbor, or any individual within close social or geographic proximity to the couple. Having stolen a measure of personal information from them, have installed spyware onto their mobile devices, or have a IMSI Stingray in play, have remote access over their router, and therefore all devices on their home network, have either access to their house or experience breaking and entering. Long story short, my colleague and I are starting a counter-offense. Based off of the behavior and tactics explained by the couple, it seems there is a semi-organized effort to annoy and disrupt their lives, but not destroy it. The couple are being gang-stalked by a group for their amusement. My colleague and I are devising both a digital and analog strategy to defend the couple and counter the perps. We don't want to merely prevent this from happening again. We want to utterly wreak havoc on these people, and hopefully apprehend them. Any and all help is warmly welcome.
I'm being gang-stalked by the local police. I have no idea what they want either. Multiple times a week they park outside my house in a totally empty, abandoned parking lot that has no views of streets or anything. The frequency of their visits have started to become more frequent and for much longer. Sometimes for up to 3 hours they'll just sit in the parking lot next to my house. If I try to approach them, they quickly drive away. What actions should I take to protect myself? I'm getting to the point where I'm willing to take drastic measures to end this.
It's probably just an officer finding a nice quiet hiding spot in the middle of nowhere to hide from his supervisors. Check the car number and see if it is the same every time or if it is the same officer. You can always call the station and inquire. But that would probably just get the guy in trouble. When I was an officer, I would work the first half of my shift being proactive to make quota, then hide somewhere secluded and chill the rest of the day hoping I don't get assigned a call. Most cops don't want to fuck with anyone and just be left alone themselves.
For a couple years now I've been targeted actually. At first it was barely noticeable. I'm a manager of a small warehouse in Nebraska. Won't say where. I'm fairly paranoid as you can probably guess. I'm not a big shot. The warehouse is mostly used for storage by a well-known phone manufacturer for retail. Starting mid-2011, I started to notice people standing in my garden in the early hours of the morning. Now this isn't weird since the back garden is shared with the neighbor opposite, and at the time I didn't know who moved in back there. The previous owner sold their house 6 months before. There was a burglary and as far as I could tell the poor guy lost his kid, but it wasn't given much news coverage. I always found it sad, sure, but I never really considered it my business. Then I start to notice several shifting shadows out there. There's no light so I can hardly see, but over time I realize that there's always a group of 5 or 6 always out there in the night. That's really when it started, I guess. I don't know what they were doing out there, shifted around, and sometimes they would move like they were laughing, so it wasn't some stony-faced cult. Pretty soon after they turned nasty, however, I noticed holes through the fence in the morning, and they dug holes for some reason. I thought it was some blasted teens using my garden as a sex den or something. So I printed a warning out on some A4 paper from work, that I knew they were there and they weren't welcome. Only threat was me calling the police. They never came back, but ever since they made my life hell at sometimes, I have to say. Don't know why they hold such a grudge, whoever they were, but they aren't teens. They called me and hung up. Except for this one time they said something like, "I see you," in this raspy voice like they were 5-year-olds. I think the intention was to scare me, but I don't have any cameras in my house, and after that I damn sure checked. I was certain it was teens until some other mildly inconveniencing stuff began to happen. 4 vans would always work in rotation to block my drive, 2 in regular rotation, 1 extra on the weekends, and 1 just at random. My car was trapped for a good week, and I was furious until I realized what was happening. I had 1 towed and managed to drive my car out of the drive, only for its car tires to be slashed the next day. The vans are still a regular occurrence though. I see people stop by my house and just look in every day, which is not normal. A lot of the time it's the same person who never does it to any other house. At nighttime they once tried honking their horn really loud next to my house. But someone called a disturbance in and got a police car parked on our street that night, which stopped that nonsense. Most scary thing that happened, I'd say, was when I noticed signs someone had been climbing up to my window in the night, damaged veranda and footmarks, and I distinctly remember tapping that night. Saddest thing that happened is my cat not coming home, but to be honest that might not have been them. I'm not a nut job. No idea why they do this. Don't even know it's of government influence. I'm not really easily spooked though. I got a 12 gauge and Navy training, so it just really boils down to minor inconveniences for me. I hope they stop soon.
I have been up. It was a friend and I actually. This happened a couple years ago. We were always researching stuff going on in the world and in hopes of finding the truth. We used to frequent the nearby Taco Bell a lot. It was cheap, close, and quick food. Always empty, so we could talk about pretty much anything without someone giving us a look. After a while this old man kept always showing up no matter what time of the day we went there. He always brought his laptop and I could tell he kept an eye on us. I started noticing and my friend did too. One day we couldn't take it any longer, just got up and left halfway through eating at the nearby Arby's. Not even 10 minutes later he walked in. It was honestly so fucked up at this point that we just took off like no other, and the guy tried to actually follow us. While running, a black SUV pulled out of the back of the parking lot and sped towards us. Thankfully we knew the area and skipped across parking lots. Meanwhile this SUV was still trying to catch up. Finally we hid low between 2 cars and lost them.
Last year me and my GF get our first apartment together. It's nothing special, decent sized 2-bedroom in a decent area. We turn 1 bedroom into a office. She works from home. One night I'm working late past 1 a.m. I get a text from my GF asking when I'm coming home, and if I know a person. That friend requested her. I'll leave out the name, it was a fake name as it turns out anyway. I text back that I have never heard of her. She texts me and tells me she seems to know a lot about us and insists we met her at a party at my GF's sister's house. Whatever, we might have met her in passing or something, I thought, and didn't think much of it. Few days pass and the person seems to constantly be sending her messages on Facebook about random shit. For example, what she did that day, and random small talk. My GF starts getting annoyed. One day she went to the store and left her phone in the car. It was an outlet mall, so she was out of her car for a few hours. When she got back to the car, there was a bunch of messages on Facebook from this person asking why she was mad and asking her why she wasn't responding her. GF explained to her she wasn't near the phone. Same shit went on for days. GF eventually just blocked her because she was starting to ask weird questions and seemed to know shit she should not know. GF calls her sister to find out who this person was. Her sister has no idea and tries to friend request her only to find the account was deactivated. Weeks pass and then out of nowhere I'm working and get a random text from a number not on my contact list asking how my GF is. I say, who is this? The person responds with the name from the Facebook account. I say, how the fuck did you get my number? Person responds with, your GF gave it to me. I text my GF and she freaks out, so I text the person and say, leave us the fuck alone. GF gets a text from a different number, not the one that called me, saying, why is your BF mad at me? GF texts back, how did you get our numbers? Person says, you mentioned them on your wall a few times. Next day, I call the two numbers. Both out of service, I'm guessing pay as you go or some shit. After that my GF got about 15 random friend requests of people she never met before. She declined all of them. After that I started getting the same friend requests. Deactivated my account. Nothing happened for months. Then out of nowhere, I get a random text asking if I'm still mad. I immediately call the number back from my buddy's phone, not mine. A man answered and said hello. I said, how the fuck did you get my number? He hung up. I tried calling it back, not even 30 seconds later, and the number was deactivated.
I have never been gang-stalked, and I don't believe it's a real thing that actually happens, but I do have a gang-stalking story. 24-hour wholesale grocery outlet near me is best place to buy anything other than fresh vegetables and meat. I like to go late at night or early in the morning because it's not as busy. I took my brother there one night around midnight. Waiting for bro in the car puffing on my e-cig because I didn't need to go inside. There's maybe 6 to 8 other cars in the parking lot. Notice there's a guy also in his car across the way, maybe 200 meters, looks like he's maybe staring at me. Figure it's because I'm blowing tons of vapor out my window and forget about it. 5 minutes later I'm blinded by the same guy's high beams. The second he turns them on, he starts speeding toward me and then stops right beside me with his window rolled down. Figure he's going to ask me for a cigarette. He just glares at me, his face like 3 feet away from my face. I say, what's up, man?
What are you doing here?
Waiting for my brother to finish shopping.
Right. Are you sure you're not doing anything else?
Pretty sure.
You staring at me? Are you watching me?
Kind of taken aback, and no. Why would I do that?
Aha, sure you're not.
He peels out and takes off. I was there for another 15 minutes and he never came back. It seemed really odd that he would just split and wasn't waiting for anything or anyone, and I scared him off. I've been on 4chan since like 06 or so I immediately kind of assumed he thought I was gang stalking him. In fairness though, he might have just been a druggie. I have a black early noughties Impala with very dark tinted windows. It's the same kind of car they were using for police cruisers before they started changing to the new Chargers.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.